Baltic Sea, North Sea, and across the Kara Sea up to the Arctic Ocean, testing NATO's northern flank. He joined the Air Force's Institute of Technology and received a master's degree in nuclear engineering, which enabled him to join the third cohort of NASA astronauts on his 30th birthday. He was assigned to the 3-man crew of Apollo 8, which was initially set for an Earth orbit, but with NASA worried that the USSR was taking the lead in the space race, that was changed to the first ever circumlunar flight. On December the 21st, 1968, Apollo 8 launched, and after a 3-day journey, orbited the moon 10 times. On Christmas Eve, during the third orbit, Anders turned a Hasselblad camera loaded with Kodak.
And you have the choice when you read, take a computer or you
His
use a
photo
stand.
is official NASA NAS 08-14-2383, but it is popularly known as Earth. The photo records the wet, blue Earth against the deep, black infinity as it rises over the edge of the dry, dusty moon. The African continent is just visible, and clouds swirl brush strokes of the night sky. Beautiful halo.
Poetry necklace.
I don't know if there's any sound.
I recognise that.
Let us know when you're ready. Hi everyone, and thank you so much everyone for showing up for our first Friday between World Water Day on the 22nd of March and Earth Day, which is coming up on the 22nd of April. We have the theme of water for April's first Friday, and I've got a little bit of housekeeping before we get stuck in. So fire exits, if there is a fire alarm, there's nothing planned, you go out the way you came in and down the stairs and out into the park that you can see through the window there. If you happen to be in the toilets, there's also a fire exit at the back through the toilet corridor, if that makes sense. So plenty of ways to get out, don't worry. Yeah, I think that's really it for housekeeping. The toilets are out there to the left, there's a kitchen out there to the left if you need anything. Don't have to ask, go and help yourselves. So a little bit about First Friday. It's a long-standing Marine Studios event and was set up in 2009 by HKD, who started this space as a kind of co-working space, multi-use space. And we're really delighted that we've kind of relaunched with a bunch of us who've decided to create a writers' hub here, but also to refresh what goes on here and bring artists and writers and creatives together into this space. So we've got Anthony Rendell Davis, who's manning the tech for us. We've got Connor Sansby, who some of you might have seen earlier, who was helping get everything ready. We have myself and we have Dan Thompson, who's got his art studio here, and together we're kind of co-leading this space and really trying to make it a vibrant space for creatives in Margate, with huge thanks to the Arts Council for funding the work. We have feedback cards that will be left on the drinks trolley. So if you do have comments and thoughts afterwards, please fill them out, because that will help us to get more funding. And what I wanted to say was that water means something to everyone. So whether it's the sea, whether it's rivers, whether it's the rain, or just the water that comes through your tap, we need it. It's part of a cycle that we're all intimately connected with, actually. And so this is a bit of an opportunity to think about that and explore that and have fun with that. And as such, we're delighted to bring you 4 members of Poets for the Planet, who have come to share some watery poetry with us. We're also doing a collaborative poem out in the main area, and you can build a little paper boat and sail it on the tub pond. So there's lots of things that you can get involved with today. I would like to introduce Jacqueline Saffa, Gail Burns, Claire Collison, and Sue Johns. And if you didn't spot them on the way up after the performance, you can also have a look at the Margate Mermaid Parade and Shelley Grotto wonderful costumes in our stair gallery, as I'm fancifully calling it these days. And Dan Thompson's artwork is in the main room as well. So I'm going to hand over to Jacqueline to tell you a bit more about Poets for the Planet. Let me just give her a little introduction. She's T.S. Eliot Prize nominated award-winning poet and playwright, editor, agitator, teacher and organiser. She's the author of 10 stage plays, 4 chapbooks and 5 collections, and she founded Poets for the Planet and is a keen performer and collaborator, working with composers, musicians, visual artists and other poets. So Jacqueline, if you'd like to come and tell us a little bit about Poets for the Planet and share some poetry with us.
She said I founded it, but I didn't found it on my own. There were a group of us who founded it, some of who are in this room. And I should say really that Poets for the Planet is a fairly young organisation. We have a constitution. Anyone who signs up to our mission statement can join Poets for the Planet. You don't have to be a professional poet, you just need to have an interest in poetry. And the idea is that we're using poetry as a means of communicating the climate crisis and communicating also the joys of nature, what a wonderful natural world we have at our disposal and how terrible it is that we appear to be ruining it. You can find details about us if you just Google us. We have a website, and we also are on Twitter, and we also, we're on all the social media channels. And once you join, you can organise things yourselves under the umbrella of Poets for the Planet, so long as you've signed up to the mission statement, which is perfectly fair and obviously you do. I think that's probably about all I need to tell you. Except that I think that the reason I came up with the idea in the first place and brought a group of people together to start doing this was that the strongest thing that I can offer are my words. That's all I have really. I'm a poet. I'm not really a politician. I'm not an economist. I'm a bit of an agitator. I've always been a bit of a political agitator, but this was one way that I felt maybe I could make a difference, just through maybe first of all pointing out what was happening, and secondly by having the imagination to think it might be different. So you're going to hear some wonderful poetry this evening, and I am first of all going to read you a poem by the American poet Jane Hirshfield, which was published in 2015, and it's a very short poem, and it's called Global Warming. When his ship first came to Australia, Cook wrote, the natives continued fishing without looking up, unable, it seems, to fear what was too large to be comprehended. I mean, I don't know, that just, every time I read that poem, I just get this shiver down my spine, well, the whole of me. And I think that is an example of the power of poetry. And actually what is great is that last line, unable it seems to fear what was too large to be comprehended, is a very, very long line. And I think what is looming for us is too large to be comprehended, which is why we're not really doing anything. So maybe poetry is one way of doing that. So during the first lockdown, I decided to write a sonnet every day. I mean, it was an idiot project, really, and I didn't imagine at all that I would write 100. I kind of got to 25, and I thought maybe I'll leave it there, and I thought, well, I might as well carry on with it. And so it went on. And each of the poems comes with a little epigraph at the beginning, usually from a newspaper, about the state of things. So they've all got dates. So given that a sonnet takes about a minute to read, I'm going to read you 4 of these, and these are all kind of round eco themes, not necessarily water, but the natural world. So this is dated the 25th of March 2020, and I went for a walk with my daughter, who was on the other side of London, and we had to maintain that distance, you might remember. So this is the 25th of March 2020. Trump says the US is beginning to see the light at the end of the tunnel. It says BBC News. This is the 25th of March 2020. Alas, there is no plan. There are no eggs, no bread. Compassion's nearly out of stock, but we can walk together in the park, keeping our distance. Spring is here. She bends her spine towards the light and takes her place amid the joy of things. She will not stop her rhymes of blossoms reaching out and up towards the sun. She will not slow her pace towards full frontal ecstasy. She knows only one way to hold this world. Our pain is not her pain. We must move on, stay close, without touching. Share the climbing light of day, build our wall of faith against the flood, and try to talk of other things, like love. And I feel like my work's often very much a balance between the dark and the light, and between the terror and the joy, and the light and the love. And this one is about the pangolin, which you might remember was considered responsible for COVID. So this is Sonnet 37 from the 28th of April 2020. And there's a little quote from the New Yorker. Most of the pangolin skins exported between 1975 and 2000 went to North America, where they were turned into handbags, belts, wallets, and fancy cowboy boots. I don't know if you ever watched a pangolin. I mean, they're just astonishing pictures. I mean, I've only seen them on film, not live. Mere biped wanderer, hands clasped in front, as if in contemplation. You could be my long-lost sister. Tacky-tongued, endangered, and lactating deity, built to roll, not wrong, oblivious to our schemes who scorch your scales like medals. Sister, they're useless. We'll have you. Toothless source of revenue, red-listed mammal, trafficked victim of the bogus trade in mortal myth. Beware the marketplace. Boiled alive, descaled, bagged up and graded, you yield a bitter meat, the market's claim. We bring you to the table just the same. Thank you for the No, really, I meant to. So this is Sonnet 52 from the 13th of May 2020, and this one is about water because we were living in East London and we used to go for a daily walk, and quite often that would be around the canals in East London, off the Thames. So 13th of May 2020, long queues force Elgin Burger King to close as police call in. BBC News. I have learned canals can be a home for coots. That coots have fascinating feet. Their noisy chicks might well provoke the swans to rage. That diners prize the roasted civet for its meat. And some might ask to view the pangolin alive before it's slaughtered. That everything exists to be consumed. That even flesh of bat can be endured if you are into it. But queues along the highway are insane because we've heard Burger King has opened up again. That we are nothing like the water rats, who rear their young and make their nests, take only what they need and leave the rest. and this is the last one, when I said about imagining another world, this was actually a commission, I think, from Poets for the Planet for some project we were engaged in. I could tell you a lot more about the different projects that we've done, but I don't have time. But we did do a wonderful one during lockdown called Fresh, which was bringing poets from all kinds of diverse backgrounds together to do readings for us, and that was really wonderful. And we collaborated with Imperial College, and we've been to COP26, so that was really helpful. Anyway, just to finish with a bit of optimism. This is sonnet, go on in Roman numerals, so this is sonnet 66. May, I got that. 27th May 2020. Amazon under threat. Fires, loggers, and now virus. BBC. Suppose the flowers clogged the logging roads. Suppose the oil inside the wells foreclosed, the world's lungs weren't on fire. Suppose the trucks were stuck, or let's get rid of those, impose a status on the worms, a temple to the toads, worship the bees and bicycles, and grope for bouts of light where nothing grows. Dose up with ragwort, pigweed, every mode of weed. Suppose we fled the fisheries and shared the loaves. Suppose the CEOs took off their dirty clothes. I don't suppose Bat or Pangolin will note our bat-shaped hopes. We're on the ropes, but just suppose, who knows? Suppose and you suppose. See where it goes.
Oh, thank you so much, Declan. And thank you to all the poets for coming all this way to Margate. It's really such a pleasure to have you. And just if you look out the window, there's the wonderful, famous Margate sunset happening. So feel free to glance out the window as you listen to their words. So the next poet that I'd like to introduce to you is Sue Johns. She originates from Cornwall, where she started performing, and I love this bit, as a punk poet in the 1980s. Sue's publications include Hush, Rented, poems on prostitution and dependency, and track record. She is a veteran of the performance poetry circuit and has performed at readings and festivals around the country, including the Edinburgh Festival and St Ives Literary Festival, and many, many more. So I'd love to invite is the words that I'm looking forward to come up and read some poetry. Thank you, Jess.
So yeah, I've got a couple of poems. I'll call them eco-poems, but they are both inspired by the sea and my Cornish roots. Now, I had an aunt who lived in Cornwall in a converted chalet amongst the sand dunes, and she was a chain-smoking diabetic, which is a great combo, and it cost her, sadly, both her legs. And where she lived was completely unsuitable for someone who was disabled, but she would not move into the town because the view from her window was out onto the Hale Estuary. She could look across the bay to St Ives, and she could see the Drinking Lighthouse. Bulimic Estuary. Snacks on the tufted bulk of dunes. At night, spews them seaward, remains Swatman. The bloated tides found you unmoved. The view across the bay held like an anchor your failing sight. Senses drawn to space and salt and light. Blood sugar took your legs from under, restored a throaty laugh, a stubborn force on wheels, marking your territory. A sandy mellow, assorted pets, TV, cheap cigarettes, your window. No customised safe house would do. The cats move first, circling, purring, circling your chair. For miles around, gulls became devoted courtiers of the air. And when you were ready, winter clothes all packed, no longer needed. When you were ready, landlubber ways to shed, reveal yourself as warming and boiling, high, wanting output time. Confused relative, small dog on hand, watched you embrace the freedom, so denied of man, in spite of man. Beyond the dreary, vessels drawn by mermaid song, pass safely, you a splash, a smoke ring. That was quite a girl. And the second poem is written partly in Cornish, and it's called An Mór ó Bhí, or I Am the Sea. An Mór ó Bhí, Mór Cerno ó Bhí, Níosden Regameris, Dagameris, Ala Bhí. Haglibia the Labric, Plagus and Barn, Hagalstio, Hachio, Udestruus and Spline. I am the sea, the Cornish sea. I have taken many men, I can take thee. I can wet your rolled up trousers, I can bring down cliffs and houses. Clw, O Lev, having worked on Tref. E Aleph, Boscaresic, O Halef, Bosgas. War, the Davis, Amachuran, Lower, the Skevens, or Kalenia, Loom, Idawa. You come down from the home counties, by a big house built on a conservatory, lucky or not, a local family, one room in a B&B. Take yourself to the estate agency, you've the money for all the best property, and you want to be right next to me. How silly. An Mór ó Bhí, Mór Cerno ó Bhí, Níosden Regameris, Dagameris, Ala Bhí. Haglibia the Labric, Plagus and Barn, Hagalstio, Hachio, Udestruus and Spline. Sun and sea can make you smile. Come and have a bob along on your lino, bring your picnic, park your car. Mount, just a bit too far. Clw, O Lev, badly worked on Tref. E Aleph, Boscaresico, Halef, Bosgas. War, the Davis, Amachulan, Lower, the Skevens, Okolena. When I voice off the beach, I can be a sweetheart, or I can be a bitch. Salty kisses on your tongue, water from up your lungs, and Mór ó Bhí, Mór Cerno ó Bhí, Níosden Regameris, Dagameris, Ala Bhí. Haglibia the Labric, Plagus and Barn, Hagalstio, Hachio, Udestruus and Spline. Why not park your new Land Rover just a little closer to the pier, my dear? Clw, O Lev, badly worked on Tref. E Aleph, Boscaresico, Halef, Bosgas. War, the Davis, Ochulan, Lower, the Skevens, Okolena, Loom, Idawa. I'm the sea, the Cornish sea. I've taken many men, I've taken many men.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Sue, and so lovely to hear the Cornish sea in Cornish. That was wonderful. So, our next poet is Gail Burns, and he's an award-winning poet, and he's been London Writer in Residence at Kingston University. He convenes the long-running Shuffle Poetry Series in London and was 2012 Hawthorne Fellow. He's widely published with 3 pamphlets, and his collection, Neat House, is available to buy here, as are many of the other books out in the main room after this event. So without further ado, go.
Whale Song. 100 whales on asylum from the sea, kissing bees poached in sand. Did they dream? Did I wail to pull them in? Like ancient fishes they claim the land, their fins sail halfway to flight, whole pods of whales on Suicide Path. We shroud them in towels and whisper, hold on. I charge the water to beckon them back. 100 whales, we and they beached. Perhaps they'll sing the leaves of deep. I live in London, which, as you probably know, is not very close to the sea. And but I have a pond, which is a 30-year project. And this stage was laying turf around the pond, which came in sort of year 15. And I don't know what else to say about it. Laying turf around the pond. We work the ground, risen up and covered in sores. The pond is held by wishfulness. The apples slung so low they bob in water. The small fish twist and turn, gulp at air. They know little of our freefall, how unheld we are, swayed in sea. Then the rain falls as if through a sieve, closing the hinge of the bay, as if to announce your leaving, footsteps marked with gold. With plants, you can guess intention. To be with another is a fine spun thing. And I wanted to read a poem actually which is about lack of water. And when I wrote it, I thought it was a poem about men, partly about men and how we deal with things going wrong, but actually, in the context of climate change, you could widen it to the pitch. The cricket pitch lies ready. The iron roller has done its task. Fathers and sons have trod the turf for years, have stood with ragged hats in wavering heat, suffering both the elation and defeat. But this is the drought year. Across the green, a fisher zags from east to west. Nothing ever seen like this before. Wise men are rushed from pubs. They suck their cheeks, ponder, is this the end of summer, or even sport? The nearby football pitch untouched, but here a gash wide enough to sink 3 balls or fielders' feet. Some pray in church, confessing wrongs. Some consider their infidelities. Others give up drink for days. Yet still the fisher hates, bearing its earth like a chasm. So the men decide to tend the grass, to talk of cricket as though the season would soon be hastened, no matter that no over had been played, no wicket. And I'll finish with I used to go on holiday when I was a child to this place called Winstead Bay, which is in Dorset. And the nice thing about Winstead Bay, from parents' point of view, is that it's got a reef. So it's very hard to drown They'd go out to sea or get lost. Parents would do what they wanted while we do what we wanted. Years go by. We boated wildly, peering over wooden rims to glacial pools, rainbow fish sliding into view. Everything panned before us, walls bleached by sun, a heavy throat of sea, countless adult legs. The path between the pines marked and elsewhere, if we could have foretold what such days would precede. As we dug and patted boats from sand, our pride caught by the family drowning, and mused that gangs of reefmen hunting octopi we never saw, their fabled plumes of ink, their sucking arms that hug you till you drown.
Thank you so much, Bill. And Dorset is where my family comes, so it's a familiar place for me. That's lovely. So our fourth poet is Claire Collison. She is a writer, artist and educator whose work spans photography, poetry, performance, installation and participatory events. She was awarded the inaugural Women's Prize by the Rebecca Swift Foundation in 2018, and in recent years she's worked with numerous organisations, just a few of them being Kessel's Yard, Waltham Forest Borough of Culture, the Culture Institute at King's College London, and particularly for today, Thames Festival and the Rivers of the World. So I'd love to invite Claire to the stage.
Has the song gone down?
Not quite, no.
If everyone wants to put their hand distracted. It's such a beautiful space to be reading in. Thanks. I'm going to read 3 from my pamphlet, which is called Placebo, and another one before I finish. Placebo came out a couple of years ago, and it draws a line really under my writing about breast cancer, but a lot of the poem preceded the cancer, and some of them carried on after the cancer. And I think it's something about the role imagination played for me in my dealing with the cancer, and I think thinking about where water comes in. I think for me, water and imagination are almost interchangeable. So that's kind of why half the poems are about breasts and half are about water and some are about both. So I'll start, and the kind of water in different places I'll talk you through. So I'll start with one which is that funny little word, "ite," those little islands on the Thames. And there's one called Pharaoh's Island, which has got some houses on it, and I found out that there'd been a domestic tragedy on this island, so this is a poem about that. Pharaoh's Island. She puts in opposite the Ite, where the common lawn slopes down to the bank. On the slippery decking of the private launch drops from plank to bench. Through the willow's fringe, keeps close to the rushes and the dark tree roots that drink from under the waterline. She easily imagines the rest. Men and dogs and Waitrose bags, keys and hellos flung into the hall, floating back. The smell of blankets, kitchen drawers reluctant with damp, bottle openers, little wisps, the guests, the long and boozy lunch, a quick tide. Another wee one which I wrote, I had this idea because I'd heard Kylie talking about her treatment and saying, I used to go in the ocean between treatments, and I thought I was at least going to go as a Lido between treatments. It didn't happen like that. So this was one I wrote, borrowing someone's lovely little house in the Isle of Wight, called Marat, based on that image of Marat in the bath. Marat. Dry docked,
You sprawl in a clawfoot bath, massaging the alphabet into your rope scar. Your physiotherapist's called catnip. She pole dances for core strength and distraction. You would not change your name for any man, especially if your name was Catnip. Last night, you went to the lighthouse. Each 5 seconds, its soda beam scooped bats and low mist like ectoplasm. In the seas, all the godsend, beef and prawn and arrowroot. So, something I discovered that when ships get wrecked, the things that come to shore is called godsend. I should probably have explained that before. It's mysterious. So I'm going to try and read a poem on my phone, which I've never done before, and then come back to finish with one from Gazebo. This is one I wrote, actually I wrote it for the Sylvia Plath Festival, and I was kind of looking at some of her lesser known poems and sort of retrofitting her as an eco-poet and thinking about the things that maybe she would have been writing about now, and that started me off, and this ended up being something that was in last year's Ginkgo Prize. And it's written about a place in southern Spain, in Andalusia, and medusas are a jellyfish. I think that's everything I need to explain beforehand. And it's called A Bumper Year for Medusas. Lola winds you down the mountain's cleft to the dry riverbed, her wheels churning dust. She points out places of apocrypha and terrible accidents, sudden floods, until the horizon splits in a thrill of blue, and she pulls on the handbrake. Lola knows every shift of this seashore. You reach the sweet spot, shade, shelter, cove. Someone's pressed a lump of pink gum to the rock. You unpack, folding your clothes in a pile, spreading a soft cloth. Lola shows you her Medusa scar, raised white bangle around her bicep, says now she carries afterbite, as if preparedness can ward the jellyfish off. Remember the tattooed bicep, the guy, summers ago, tending sardines over ash, a baby's head, round and sleepy as the moon. It was at a fiesta for Santa Carmen, Virgen del Mar. It was August, and you were on a fishing boat. There were crowds of you, drinking beer, ice-chilled in the stinking hull, waiting for the Virgin to be blessed. And every time you necked the last, you tossed the bottles overboard. Everyone did. And although it felt wrong, you thought of the smooth sea glass you loved. Reason, it was that, in embryo. Stifled the twitch of stitches in your foot's arch, sliced years ago on bottles logged into the half-moon lake at a gig where there were no tides and there was no time. Lola says this will be a bumper year for Medusas, and every day as the water warms, you anticipate their return. You picture and fail to bless them, beautiful lurkers, oblivious, impeding your freedom. I will finish with this one. It's there's a kind of poetry prompt that comes up a lot, which is the what if. What if? What if? This is my what if Noah was married to Esther Williams, the synchronised swimming 1930s. So it's called Esther and the Ark. The milk's off. That's the sign. And the monkeys smell of cradle cap. We're all on edge. The sky's a headache. Esther, in trademark two-piece, dishes out nose clips, drills us. Work and pray, stay in your pairs, and for God's sake, smile! She can't stop with the air crawl, Mrs. Oars for arms, head twisting port to starboard. To begin with, we think it's the timber settling. He's moving the furniture, she jokes. On his Harley, I reply. You dovetail pretty well, all told. She has spirit, can hold her breath for hours, prise herself from a clam. The birds are first to sense it. The gasp, then plash on my sawdust skin. Esther slicks on Vaseline. It'll take forever to wash out. She's promised us swallow dogs.
Wow. Thank you so much. A huge thank you to all our poets, to Jacqueline, to Sue, to Gail, and to Claire. Feeling very nourished, thinking about those roots that you were speaking of. And sorry, and actually, in fact, I was going to say thank you very, very much to both our live audience here at Marine Studios and also to the people who will hopefully be watching this live stream or on demand. So thank you everyone for coming. Do go and contribute to the collaborative poem now that you've been inspired by these words, and do catch the last of the sunset and stay around and chat, because I think it's really important that we get a chance to share our thoughts and ideas and fears and hopes. So let's do that. Cheers everyone.
Thank
Yeah, I do what I think but I would like to get into more tuning into listening to short. I know that there is some
Jill is the viewer, doesn't she?
now I can
Oh yes.
Okay. What are you doing in the way of transcription? No, it's quite at that moment, right? What's the situation? Yeah, we're in do they run recently? It is a long way to go. The milk trying to say something.